In this video, I'm going to share with you 3 ways that I'm using Paprika App to help us cope and to help give us a little bit of ease as we're here on lockdown in the UK. Hello everyone, and I hope you're well wherever you are. This is a really difficult time for all of us in the world, and I wanted to share with you some ways that I'm using Paprika App whilst we're here on lockdown. We're well here, and thanks to the whole growing frugal thing around saving money and buying food in bulk and growing food, we're actually in a really good position in terms of food. But nonetheless, it's a very different life, and we are indoors, and my priority is one, to keep myself sane, and cooking and growing food is a big part of that for me, but also to make sure we're eating healthily, keeping our immune systems as well as they can be, and also that we're not getting too caught up in the panic buying that's going on in a lot of places. I know it's totally understandable. I get all those panic feelings myself, and what I've been doing is using the best of Paprika App to actually help me with that and to help reassure us that we are okay and we don't have to go rushing out always buying things when we have enough in the house if we get a bit creative with it. So I want to share with you 3 of the ways I'm doing that, in the hope that it might help you too wherever you are. So here, to do this video the easiest way, I've actually got Paprika open on my Mac, so I'm using the Mac version today. So the first way I'm using the app to help us at this really difficult time is to help me get a bit flexible with some of the recipes I'm making, so that I'm using the ingredients that are already in the cupboard here rather than feeling I need to rush out to the shops. And in doing that, I'm of course changing recipes up, and now and again, and fairly often actually, I substitute some ingredients and it turns out to be a better recipe, which is really lovely. But I haven't got a good memory and I forget straight away what I've done. So what I'm doing now is that if I'm working from a recipe and adapting it, I'm using Paprika to help me capture what I'm doing. So here's how I do it. So here we are with, I'm going to use as an example my black bean stew and rice, which is a really great store cupboard kind of recipe at this time. So here it is. Here's the no soak black bean stew and rice recipe. So I know I haven't got carrots or celery, so I'm going to be trying substituting those this evening. And I know that I've got my very last slightly tasteless fennel actually in the fridge, so I'm thinking of using that instead. So I'm going up to the top of the recipe card and I'm clicking the 3 buttons, the action buttons here, and that opens up a mini window, and you can see here we've got an option for duplicate. So I'm going to duplicate that, and if you look at the title of this recipe card now, it says no soak black bean stew and rice IP pot in pot copy. So I will change that now and I'll just call it adapted for now, and then I'm going to change up, take out the carrot, and I'm going to make it into 1 bulb of fennel. Put a little star there so I can tell what I've adapted in place of celery and carrot. So there we are, I've adapted it slightly there, and then when I cook it this evening, I will then see how it goes. If it's really nice, I'll come back here and I'll make some notes in the notes section. And if it's really nice and I'm happy with it as a brand new recipe, I can retitle it here up at the top. I might just do a hashtag called lockdown, because I want to remember where something has worked, because I know I'll be in this position again. It feels like this is going to last for quite some time, so we're going to all need to get a bit creative with what we're cooking. So that is tip number 1. Use the recipe duplicate function as you're adapting your recipes during the lockdown period. So my second tip for you is to look at using some of the functions of Paprika to give you a bit of a sense of ease about how long you can last on the staple foods that you have. So one of the things I'm trying to avoid is buying needlessly when I've got a lot of food in the cupboards, and I have because I've been bulk buying for a long time. So I'm lucky enough to have food in the cupboards, and I don't want my panic to drive me to go to a supermarket or get a delivery and get even more of rice or whatever it is when actually other people might need it more than me. However, myself and my partner have found ourselves going into a panic. Oh my goodness, what if we haven't got enough rice? What if we haven't got enough bread? We could be locked down for much longer. We're worried about food security. Will the supply last? We're a small island. We don't produce a lot of our own food. All of those things are kind of rushing through my mind, and I'm sure you have an equivalent of that. And so it's not our fault, but that kind of worry that we have might drive us to buy more food than we need, which could mean wastage and again could be taking it away from someone who really does need that food. So the last thing I want to do is to be doing that. So I'm using Paprika to help me, and I'm really pleased with this tip because it's given us a lot of ease. So we have a bread maker here, and I have flour and the ingredients for bread in. I buy flour in bulk all the time, and therefore I've still got quite a lot in the cupboards from my last bulk buy before we were locked down. And I kind of know I've got enough flour, but with all of the panic and the frantic mind that we're all suffering from, even I kind of get into maybe I haven't got enough flour. How much flour does it take to make a loaf of bread anyway? And I know that it's not easy to get flour here in the UK at the minute. So all of that can kind of build up into a bit of a rising panic, which we don't need at the moment. There's enough to be worried about. So I've worked out a way to use Paprika, and it's absolutely brilliant because it's really reassured both of us here that we have enough ingredients in already to manage for a good few weeks on bread. So let me switch back over to the screen, and I'm going to show you how to use one of the functions in Paprika so you can look for yourself at your rice or your pasta, whatever you use as a kind of staple food, and then just see how many meals you could make, or in this case, how many loaves of bread you could make with what's in your cupboards. So let me show you how I'm doing it. So hopefully we're back now into picture in picture, and let's get up the loaf that we're making. And I have actually used the duplicate function for this. So one of the recipes we really like in using our bread machine is a honey and sunflower loaf. So what I've done is thought, well, let's say we're going to have that honey and sunflower loaf as a standard food over the however long we end up locked down. The first step was to go and check how much flour do I have. So I've gone to my cupboards and I've audited exactly how many bags of flour and what weight they were in kilos in my case. And then also checked on the honey, checked on the yeast, checked on the seeds, that kind of stuff. So that all the ingredients, I know what there is. And then I've brought up the recipe here, and you can see it's currently called lockdown loaf. So I did what I just showed you in the earlier part of the video, in that I've adapted that loaf because what I found in the order was that I had a lot more wholemeal flour than I did have white flour. So what I've done is I've upped the proportion of the wholemeal flour in this particular loaf, which is still a really lovely loaf. Actually, I think it might be a bit better. Um, so this is one that I followed my own principle on, and I've adapted it here. So I now know what ingredients I need to make one loaf of bread. But what I want to know is how many loaves of bread can I make with what I've got in. So what I do is I use the scale and convert function. So I've clicked just under ingredients on the blue writing here, scale ingredients. And let's say I want to know that I've got 15 loaves of bread to last us a few weeks. So I'll change this to 15. And you can see now that Paprika has just automatically recalculated what the ingredients are needed to make those 15 loaves of bread. And I can look at that now against my audit form of how much flour and yeast and stuff I have and see if I've got enough. So there we go. I know that I will need 52.5 grams of yeast, 3.75 kilograms of the wholemeal flour, 2.25 kilograms of the strong white flour, etc., etc. And that has enabled us to see that we're perfectly fine with the flour. So you could also do this for rice or pasta. So say it was pasta, and I think a standard portion size is something like 75 grams. For me, we're a family of two, so I would make a recipe card here, and I would put into it that 150 grams is a portion of spaghetti, say. And then I can just use the auto calculator here. I might add half a jar of pesto, a very simple meal. And so I could make that as a recipe card, and then I can scale it up, see how many jars of pesto I need, see how many ounces or grams of spaghetti or linguine that I need, and work out from there what kind of a meal plan that we could do that's realistic. So this takes me on to tip number 3. And tip number 3, if you've been watching my videos, you already know this, is to make yourself a menu, a meal plan for a lockdown period in case this happens to you. And what I'd suggest you do in that meal plan is focus on some healthy foods so that if one or other of you are ill, you have some easy, healthy foods in the house. And you've made the meal plan, you know you have the ingredients. You can start now making soups in bulk, freeze the extra, keep freezing a portion, whatever you're making. And then eventually you'll get to where we nearly are, which is that we nearly have enough food in the freezer now, where if one of us falls with this awful disease, that there will be some very simple but very healthy foods in the freezer. But for right now, what I'd like you to do is to go straight over to my meal planning video, see how easy it is, and then you will be able to get prepared, cease the panic, and make sure that you have food on the table during this difficult time for all of us. Stay well, everyone, and stay safe. I'll see you soon.